We're ready.
We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mark Cole,
Here.
Oliver Jenkins,
Present.
Monty Montalongo.
Here.
Ross Bourgeois,
Here.
Tony Parite,
Here.
Jared Rickey,
Here.
Eula Simeon.
Here.
Lenore Feeney.
Here.
Jason Hanneman. Here. Eric Dorsey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Observe a moment of silence, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did we receive any requests to address the commission on any items on the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, we did not.
Okay, with that, we'll move on. Since they have none, we'll move on to the business items. Consideration, first item is consideration of the minutes from February 8th of 2024. Do we have any motions?
So moved.
Been moved to approve and seconded to approve the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Second business item is a request from the Office of State Police for a temporary individual pay adjustment in the amount of $255.57 bi-weekly for Jamison Jordan, State Police Trooper, in accordance with State Police Commission Rule 6.16C, effective January 22, until such time that he meets the minimum qualifications for detailed sergeant, or he is no longer serving in protective service in the protective service unit. And we have a representative of the agency to speak on that issue.
Yes, sir. I'm Frank Mason, Chief of Staff of State Police, Chairman, members. Thank you for having me. Yes, sir. This request is very similar to a request we made back in January with two other troopers. One of them actually being in the same section as Trooper Jordan. So this request is basically he'll receive pay relative to his duties in protective service, which is dignitary protection, specifically for the governor, first lady, and lieutenant governor. And we appreciate your approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions if you need me to.
I know y'all answered this last time, but since it's a new meeting, I would like you to address whether it's customary to approve such.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, this is not the first time after we do this. As a matter of fact, I remember this happening even back when Governor Jindal was in office, that we have people and we bring into the section and they don't quite meet the qualifications to the rank of sergeant, but we'll increase their pay to uphold that until they do meet the qualifications. So yes, sir.
Because you know what would normally happen if they met the qualifications, but they weren't a sergeant, you would detail them as though they were a sergeant in order for them to get that pay. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
And he is close to that, but has not yet met that qualification.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. You did a convincing job.
Thank you.
Third business item is a request of the Office of State Police for temporary individual pay adjustment in the amount of $240.89 bi-weekly for Katie Manali, State Police Trooper, in accordance with State Police Commission Rule 6.16C, effective January 22, 2024, until such time as she meets the minimum qualifications for detailed to sergeant, or she is no longer serving in the protective services unit. So all the things we said about the last one would apply to this one as well.
Yes, sir. Same section, same qualifications. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Quick, because she's got quite a bit more time, right? 2 or 3 years or something before she would reach the
Actually, she has a lot, the amount is a little bit less because she has a little bit less time. So the
Maybe
funding,
it's a typo. Okay,
the funding that she get, yeah, is not as much as as Trooper Jordan because he has been on the job a little bit longer. So his pay is a little bit higher than hers. That makes
You're
sense.
talking about compensation. He's talking about
Oh.
the amounts.
yes, sorry. What I was asking is, since she's got 2 more years or 2.5 more years, right, until she would meet the requirements to be eligible in terms of time and grade, right?
Yes, sir.
So is it routine even for somebody that far below time and grade to?
Yes, yes, sir. It's very possible because we'll look at people's background, maybe even their prior experience before they even started with state police, and if they fit what we're looking for that particular section or those particular duties, yes, sir. It's customary for us to bring them in to do that job.
And isn't it, obviously it's for protective service of the governor's family? is that
Yes, sir.
correct? And
Yeah, but more or less for Jeff Landry's wife, for Sharon. I
Yeah,
guess,
that's-
because, she's
right.
the woman on the force.
and they have a substantial influence in picking who they want to provide those.
We do get
sorts
those
of
requests.
personal- I'm sorry?
Yes, sir. We do get those requests.
Right, and so that person may or may not be near the rank of sergeant yet.
Yes, sir.
But that's.
And it
who
does
they-
help, as Mr. Cole said, that her being a female, where she can go to places with the first lady, and obviously that male troopers can't go.
Right, okay, all right. Any other questions? Did we have a motion yet? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is an update on the status of state police service pay schedule that was promulgated as Exhibit A of General Circular number 231 and unanimously approved by the State Police Commission on May 11, 2023. At that time, there was not adequate funding to fully implement, and the question being presented today, I believe, is whether there's been adequate funding presented and whether we've gotten approval from the governor to, all of which is required before we can fully implement the pay grade.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to provide that update to the commission. Included in your binders is the Act number 20 of the second extraordinary legislative session that just ended, wherein the governor has signed an appropriation for the Office of State Police that would provide the funding for the full implementation of the pay grid that was approved by this commission in May of 2023. And as you recall, the provisional grid was granted effective July 1, 2023. The Act 20 also included provisions for uniform allowance, shift differential, and field training officer, which are items 5 through 7 on this agenda. So funding for pay schedule as well as these additional adjustments have been included in Act number 20. And as of yesterday afternoon, I did receive notice from the governor's executive council that he has signed the approval for the pay grid. And I do not have yet the actual signed documentation with the effective date, but as soon as we have those from his executive council, we will then issue a transmittal, and we will work on implementation of the pay grid. As I understand it, the proposed effective date was January 9th, 2024 this year, when shortly after Governor Landry was sworn in. And we will work with the state uniform payroll to make sure that the payroll system is updated with the new grid, and also the Office of State Police DPSHR. We'll have to spend a good many hours doing the transactional entry, but eventually everything will catch up with
Now, as
new grid.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
As I understand, obviously this was a new pay grid that was approved prior to this legislative session, prior to current governor, but there was not adequate funding. And now there's adequate funding that we can fully implement it based on this new statute that was signed into law.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. And at the time, the cadet entry rate was at 46,000 and as of last year. And then in July of the provisional grid took that pay up to 53,000. And this new pay grid, the full pay grid that was adopted by the commission, will fully raise the cadet entrance rate to 56,000.
Any other questions? With deference to the rest of the commissioners, what I would ask that we do is let's put the rest of the 5 that all fall within this new legislation and we could approve them all at the same time, or would we have to do those individually?
I think you can approve those in globo.
Well, let's also then review items number 5 through 7, which are item 5 is request of the Office of State Police to amend the daily uniform allowance from $8 to $15 each day that the state police troopers are required to work in accordance with State Police Commission Rules 6.29, effective March 14, 2024. Request number 6 is a request of Office of State Police to amend the shift differential pay from 50 cents per hour to $5 per hour for work performed during regularly scheduled shifts for any time periods other than 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, in accordance with State Police Commission Rule 6.16A, effective March 14. And number 7 is a request of the Office of State Police to amend extraordinary duty compensation authority from $1.30 per hour to $5 per hour under the provisions of State Police Commission Rule 6.16B for state police troopers that actively serve as field training officers overseeing the performance of newly assigned graduates of the State Police Training Academy effective March 14, 2024. Do we have any motions?
So moved.
It's been moved. It's been moved and second to approve. Would you accept the friendly amendment to indicate that the approval would be subject to the effective dates set forth here and or by the approval that's signed by the governor that you will receive going forward?
I would just, as a technical point, Mr. Chairman, the funding has already been approved for these 3 items in the legislation. The governor's effective date is a separate item, only on the pay grid. Correct.
Okay, so subject to approval by the governor and written confirmation of that and the effective date as set forth by the governor. On the pay grid, the rest of
Pay
it.
grid. These items are effective March 14, 2024.
Correct. Yeah, I'll accept that as an amendment to your motion.
Do you want to make a push to go back to January?
I can't make that push. That's not the motion we have before. All right, I think he reluctantly accepted that as an amendment to his. All righty, any other discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. All righty, and that moves us to item number 8. In accordance with State Police Commission Rules 13.22, consideration of amicable settlement of appeals submitted by the parties in the matters of Russell Brew, docket number 23270-T, and Matthew Clare, docket number 23267-S. Do you have any? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Jason Hessick, General Counsel for Public Safety Services. As said, I have 2 matters for the commission today. One is a consent agreement between Mr. Brew and the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections Public Safety Services. In that matter, that's docket number 23270-T. We're requesting the commission to allow us to, instead of going with the original termination, to allow Mr. Brew to resign in lieu of termination. We also have a addendum to that one involving his used K time, which was used between the Loudermill and the final letter. That was 336 hours of used K time. During that time, Mr. Brew has agreed to waive any rights or procedures that he would have in contesting the use of that time.
He will not seek reimbursement of that.
That's
time.
correct.
All right. Is counsel for Mr. Brew present?
I actually just got a phone call from Mr. Hessler. He is unfortunately stuck in New Orleans and is unable to make it today.
But they agree to the terms of as evidenced by the signature on the agreement.
Yes, sir.
Anyone have any questions relative to that? This came up at a last last hearing and we deferred it until today, so some details could be worked out on the settlement.
Yes, sir. That was, we had some questions about the use of that K time and if he's resigning, what the effect of that would be on his K time. Also to what he would be paid out at the time of resignation.
All right, thank you. You want to go ahead? I don't think there are any questions with that one. You want to present the other?
Yes, sir. The other one is with Master Trooper Matthew Clare. On January 18th, 2023, Trooper Clare received a letter from Colonel Lamar Davis notifying him of a suspension without pay and allowances for 40 hours. He timely appealed that suspension time. Through the course of his appeal, we have been working with Mr. Floyd Falcon on this matter. And some other additional facts came to light during the course of this, partly with his training. At this time, we are requesting to withdraw the 40-hour suspension and move towards a letter of counseling for Trooper Clare.
We have any questions? Okay, I guess I've got a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, this involves a question of use of force. This commission has had to deal with use of force issues significantly in the past. This was put on the agenda 2 days ago.
Yes, sir.
It raises concern for me that we're being asked without a whole lot of information to approve a settlement relative to a claim of use of force. Can you give me any more details that might justify that?
Yes. So just describing the matter in a little bit more detail, Master Trooper Clare pulled over an individual for a DWI.
Well, I had the opportunity to read.
Okay.
But I mean, you said something about training issues came
Yes.
up.
So
Tell me what you've learned since then that might justify this.
So Master Trooper Clare has been trained in the monodoc system. That system uses force sparingly, but uses force to try to calm down a situation. In this instance, he slapped an individual that was approaching him in a prison or a corrections officer, and that was his way of bringing down the situation. The current training that is put in place right now is called SSGT, which is standardized self-defense and grappling techniques. It's less strikes to an individual and more getting control of them and forcing them into a position where they can't hurt anybody. This came up with the use of force board, where at the time of the use of force board, he was actually exonerated or justified on the use of force based off of the monodac system. That was a 3-2 split. But then we ended up in the disciplinary matter where the DRC found that it was not the appropriate use of force in that situation.
So you said he was trained under the earlier system.
Correct.
Had he not been advised of the implementation of the new system prior to this?
I believe he was, sir. Talking to troopers about the two different systems, troopers go through a great deal of training on the system that they've been using, and it becomes somewhat of a fight response. As in, this is what they've been trained to do when they see this issue coming up, and the monodac system versus SSGC react differently. In this situation, I believe he's received training on the new system, but it's just that what he has internalized for dealing with the situation that kind of pops into place when he's faced with that situation.
So how is a letter of counseling going to enforce the need to stop reacting under the old system and start acting under the new system?
Well, the counseling will also come with training opportunities for Trooper Clare to be able to get him in the mindset of using SSGC over his training that he currently that he's currently working off of.
Are those opportunities going to be mandatory?
I believe so. Yes, Your Honor.
You believe or we know?
Colonel Hodges is focused on training, whatever is required for his troopers to do what they need to do out in the field. He's going to make sure it happens.
Well, I can only speak for myself, but I certainly would like some assurance that it's going to be mandatory as opposed to optional relative to that.
Yes, sir.
So I'm taking what you're saying that that's going to be the case.
Yes, sir.
Anybody?
And the department's position, even earlier on through the use of force board, was that the use of force was appropriate.
Yes. So the use of force board, it was a five panel board. Three of the panel members found that it was just justified use of force. Two of them did not. Because of that split, it then went on to the colonel for review.
And you said the subject, excuse me, approached Trooper Claire. That was an aggressive approach that required him to address the approach to not be attacked. Is that, it wasn't just an approach. He wasn't walking up to, excuse me, the trooper. It was
correct. So just to clarify, prior to this, Trooper Claire had held restraint because he was the only one that was involved with the individual throughout the breathalyzer, the intoxilizer, all that. The circumstances changed here where the person was still acting aggressive at the prison, and there is a prison guard right next to the trooper. So when he approached, he was approaching both of them.
I think another important feature is to give you, I'm not sure how much background you need, but insofar as in a typical fashion, the man was arrested, he was cuffed behind his back,
I read all that.
transported,
I read all that.
and then the deputy changed his the cuffs from the back to the front, and the man approached Matt Clare with his arms raised, charging towards him. So I think that was a substantial. If you're assuming this is use of force and he's cuffed at the back, I think that would be a very significant factor. But that was not the case. He was in the control of the parish, Marksville, with whatever parish that is. Balls Parish, right? He was in the control. He was already in the jail and under the control of the.
I read the letter of discipline. I understood the change in the handcuffing positions, but I still want to make sure that we send the right message, not only to the agency, but to the public about how we feel about use of force as a commission. And we need to make sure that we send the message, because it's the truth, of how serious that sort of allegation is. Now, when you said it was 3-2, so does that mean because it was not unanimous, there was no finding at that point, so it had to go to the colonel? Explain that a little more.
They typically go to the colonel anyway. The panel itself found that it was justified based off of the 3-2 split.
That was a formal finding despite the fact that it was not unanimous.
Correct.
Okay.
The colonel has the ability to review use of force and decide whether or not he agrees with the use of force panel. I believe in this one, Colonel Davis did not agree with the use of force panel.
No.
And then because of that, it went on to internal affairs.
Anybody else?
I think one thing that it does bring up, though, for sure, and I hate to use the term deprogramming one training system to a new training system, but I'm assuming there's something in place for everybody that was under the old system to make sure they're up to date with the new techniques.
We are constantly training our troopers in updates to law enforcement techniques, including their use of force.
I mean, specifically to the change in the two training modules or techniques.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. At this point, we'll consider a motion to go into executive session regarding the allegations of misconduct. We have a motion.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Take a roll call vote, please.
Ross Bourgeois,
Yes.
Mark Cole,
Yes.
Oliver Jenkins,
Yes.
Monty Montalongo,
Yes.
Tony Parikh,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Eula Simeon.
Yes. Okay, we're
now
going
in
into executive session. I think that's Mr. Hessig's bag I see down there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Erica, you ready? Is everybody else ready? Okay, we'll come back to order and entertain a motion to leave executive session.
So moved.
And moved and seconded, and take a roll call vote, please.
Ross Bourgeois,
Yes.
Mark Cole.
Here.
Oliver Jenkins,
Yes.
Monty Montalongo,
Yes.
Tony Paree,
Yes.
Jared Ricky,
Yes.
Eula Simeon.
Yes.
We're back in regular session.
Entertain a motion relative to the approval of the settlement of Trooper Brew.
Make a motion, accept it.
Second.
It's been double moved and double seconded. All right, so we don't have to do a roll call vote in this, do we? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have any motions relative to the settlement proposed in the Matthew Clare matter?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the settlement. Any discussions? I would just like to make a brief comment. I have concerns about any time there's an allegation of excessive use of force. I understand the explanation that you gave and the assurances that you gave relative to not only ensuring additional training for this particular trooper, but that y'all are pushing the training relative to your other troopers, because I understand the other system is still used by some agencies, but that's not the system that's being used by this agency.
Correct.
And the troopers in this agency need to stick to the system in this agency, unless this agency makes a decision to change systems again. Okay, and I'm not advocating that, by the way, but there is a need to make sure there's adequate training so that we don't have these knee-jerk, I call it a knee-jerk reaction. And so that we don't have to deal with these issues going forward. So my expectation, only speaking for me, is that whatever needs to be done to instill additional training will be done by the agency to ensure that there is compliance with this agency's methods of operation.
Yes, sir.
Because that's what this commission is most interested in enforcing. I'm not saying that I'm taking an opposition to the approval of the settlement, but I do want to express that concern. It also was expressed by Commissioner Jenkins as well. So let's just make sure we move forward in the right directions.
Yes, sir.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Takes us to the next item on the agenda, consideration of a resolution to amend the professional legal services contract for fiscal year 2024.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As you're aware, that we tend to exceed our legal services hours and get a supplemental appropriation. We've done that consistently for several years. This year, we also have a request in that's being submitted for supplemental appropriation, and which would require us to amend our contract. We're currently under a 3-year contract that ends on June 30th. I've been advised by new Attorney General Liz Murrell's staff that they would like a resolution for amendment of contracts. And then going forward, we also need a resolution to do a new contract, and that would come at a later meeting. So I'm prepared to read the resolution as using the template provided by the Attorney General's team for the amendment of the contract, and then a vote of the commission would be in order. And with that, I'll read the resolution. State Police Commission resolution to amend the contract for contract for professional legal services with Taylor, Porter, Brooks, and Phillips LLP. Whereas the State Police Commission was constitutionally created and vested with broad and general rulemaking and subpoena powers for the administration and regulation of the classified state police service. And whereas the State Police Commission has exclusive power and authority to hear and decide all removal and disciplinary cases. And whereas the commission is in need of legal representation in the form of a general counsel to serve as a referee for disciplinary cases, provide representation for possible litigation, and provide counsel to staff and commission members. And whereas Taylor, Porter, Brooks, and Phillips LLP have provided legal services for the commission for over 30 years, and M. Lenore Feeney has served in the role of contracted special counsel for over 10 years. And whereas the hourly rate of the contract effective March 1st, 2024 shall be $3.15 per hour and within the guidelines established by the Louisiana Attorney General, with total compensation for the 3-year contract not to exceed $281,225. And whereas the term shall not be for a period of more than 3 years from the original effective date of July 1st, 2021. And whereas this resolution shall take effect immediately, and therefore be it resolved that the State Police Commission, pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 42262, does hereby continue to contract with Taylor Porter Brooks and Phillips LLP and M. Lenore Feeney as special counsel. And be it further resolved that this resolution and proposed contract amendment described herein be submitted to the Attorney General for the state of Louisiana for approval. Thus done and signed, the city of Baton Rouge on the 14th day of March, 2024.
You have any motions?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Now, do you have any discussion? Now, I understand that there's already been a request that has been approved to fund this.
There's been a request submitted through the Office of Planning and Budget, and they have supported that request and the Division of Administration to submit that to the supplemental appropriation.
Okay. So what we'd be voting on basically has already, from a financial standpoint, has already been approved.
It's already been submitted for approval. Correct.
Submitted for
Yes.
approval and
It hasn't been voted on yet, but it's submitted for approval. And this is the first step in order to amend that contract.
Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it.
And I'll circulate this for signature or have it for signature.
Because I'm the one that probably calls the law more than anybody else. I'm glad we approved the. Okay. The director's report.
There's a typo. I'll need to correct this for signature. I'll circulate that.
Good catch. I mean, your detail, that's pretty impressive. I don't even read the signature, but I assume they're spelled correctly.
The signature line was Mr. Puri was on there twice, so I need to put Commissioner Ricci on.
That's impressive.
That's right. Yes, Mr. Chairman, the first item on the director's report would just be to remind or provide a copy of the expenditures. That's behind tab number 10. And as you can see under our professional services on page 2, we have exceeded our expenditures in that category. And so we are appropriately taking remedy to that. Are there any other questions regarding the budget?
In the upcoming fiscal year, is there an increase in that budget item?
That's correct. And that takes me to the second item on my agenda is that we submitted our request to annualize these increases. So we're not going to supplemental appropriation every year. And that was submitted and supported in the executive budget. And we had House Appropriations and Senate Finance. Deputy Director Dorsey and I were in attendance, and there were no questions or concerns regarding the budget that was submitted. That includes the higher amount allocated for legal services going forward. That is the supplemental appropriation. Let's see. We are moving on. We are going to do exploring some new options for training regarding the preventing sexual harassment training, which is due at the end of the calendar year. We're looking at an option that's more interactive, hopefully easier to use and serve for you all. So we're exploring those options. Another reminder is that ethics, the financial disclosure tier 2.1 is due by May 15th each year. We have a copy of the disclosure form at the table behind me, and we'll also be sending out links for you to file those ethics disclosure forms. And then the last item I had on my agenda is that our next meeting is scheduled for April 11th at 10 a.m. Do you have any questions?
Seeing none.
All right.
Okay, I understand we did not receive any requests to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda.
That's correct.
At this point, we will adjourn unless there's an objection. Seeing none, we adjourn.